Who has loved you into being? Who are the people who have helped you become who you are? I invite you now, along with me, to take 10 seconds or so, I'll time it, to think of the people who cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life. The people who loved you into being. 10 seconds of silence. Whomever you have been thinking about, how pleased they must be to know the difference you feel they have made. These words and this practice, the one we've just experienced, come from Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. He incorporated this 10 seconds of silence into his Emmy acceptance speech, inviting all the important people there to think for a moment of the people who had loved them into being. The question, who has loved you into being, is so powerful that it jumps off the page, it leaps off the screen, and it settles in a personal way within each of us, just as Fred Rogers intended. It also turns very quickly into an invitation or a call to us. For having realized who has loved us into being, then we begin to think of how we are loving others into being. So take another 10 seconds or so of silence and bring to mind those you are helping to become their truest selves, those you care about and want the best for. 10 seconds of silence. On this Christmas night, both those questions seem especially poignant and powerful. This year especially. We are so aware this year of many circumstances far and near where people are in desperate need of someone to demonstrate care and love. Can we honestly, for example, say that we're loving into being the millions of people in this country who are perpetually hungry, whose growth is stunted and potential impaired? Or the families and children of all ages who are detained in cold ICE centers, kept frigidly in detention, denied their own medicines, and separated permanently? If you picture the faces of children in your classrooms or your schools or in your neighborhoods who want nothing more than to be loved into being by adults who put the children's needs first, who do you see? Would you be someone that they would call to mind as one who wanted to love them into being, who wanted the best for them, and who cared about them? This Christmas night, as we welcome a newborn child into our midst, we cannot do so honestly without also welcoming children far and near, embracing them as we want to embrace the Christ child. We cannot, with any integrity, open our hearts to the Christ child and close them to other children in need. For the Christmas miracle is that God came to earth as one in total need, unable to fend or take care of himself, one who of necessity relied on others to provide for him and love him into being. And at the same time, Emmanuel, God with us, came to earth so that you and I and every person, and indeed every living creature, could be loved that way. Without the light of God's grace and compassion coming into the dark places we know all too well, we could not know how to love. Scripture tells us that we love because God first loved us. The God who is being itself, who is I am, who is, as theologian Paul Tillich put it, the ground and power of being, loved us into being. And not just us, but the whole world. The koalas, whose bush and brush is now being destroyed, and the polar bears, the giraffes and the elephants, all the ecosystem, which God loved into being in the beginning and calls on us to continue providing for. Unto us a child is born, loved into being by God, who loves each of you into being. Who do you, in turn, love into being? How you and I answer that question may be someone else's biggest Christmas gift this year.